Hello and welcome to DB Overland. Today is an awesome day. We are starting on the Overland Trailer Build. I've been waiting for this. I'm excited to do this. So stay tuned and we'll tackle this trailer build. I am super excited about this. I get to start collecting parts for my next project and I am super excited. And there we go. I think that'll work. Let's go and take a look and I'll show you guys what it's gonna be. Ugh. Well, there it is. I think that's gonna work out quite well. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so we got one tire and I've got another tire and that should do it. So let's get this thing rolling. Yeah, I think that's gonna work out real well. Sweet. That one's a little frozen. Anything in here? That one's a little stuck. And that one's a little stuck. That's okay. Water. Sweet. Well, let's see here. Oh, not bad. Not bad. Well, one down, one more to go. All right, so I want to show you guys what we got going on for the Overland Trailer Build. And so this is what I've got to start with, so I'm going to walk you through it. So I was able to find this old camper trailer frame. Now it had a whole bunch of wood deck on it that I had to cut off to get down to the bare frame. And then I found these. I think this is going to be pretty awesome. Now I saw a whole bunch of builds online of people using like utility boxes, like the whole utility box, which for me it's just too big. I didn't want something that big. So these are step side utility boxes. I've never seen these before. Apparently in the 70s and 80s they were quite a popular thing, and with being in an area that has a lot of oil field activity and work, I actually stumbled across two of these. So yeah, I think it's going to work out pretty well. So here's kind of the plan. I wanted to have the trailer no longer than these utility boxes themselves. And I didn't want to have the trailer any wider than what my Jeep Cherokee is. So I'm trying to go for somewhat narrow, and not very long, because I didn't want to have a very, very long trailer for when I start getting into rougher stuff. So my plan is to make it as long as the boxes, which is going to require shortening the frame, obviously. I don't need all this frame. And we're going to go with a single axle setup. I don't need the dualies. And so we got a lot of work. We got to cut the frame, move the frame rails in so that way we've got clearance for the tires, and start building it up. So for this first video series, that's what we're going to work on. Today is going to be cutting the frame down and moving it in so we can mount the boxes, and then we're going to relocate the suspension so we can make it a rolling frame. And that's my goal for this weekend. So let's make it happen. All right, this is good. So, there we go. I got the tongue cut, so I've got a 3-foot span on the outside of frame rail to frame rail, because that's what I want. And I got my main rails all cleaned up, ready to go. My neighbor across the street, he's got a torch, so I was getting kind of tired of grinding. So I ran over to his house and said, hey, can I borrow your torch for a little bit? And yeah, no problem. So that was kind of nice. So I was able to get a lot of the big chunks just, blown off, and then I was able to clean up the frame rails. So this is really good. I'm getting really excited. So I think what I'm going to do now is look at cross bracing. And the reason why I'm thinking of doing that is because when I've got the frame rails down on the ground here, if I've got some material around back that I can put in for some cross supports, and if I weld those in now with the frame flat on the ground, when I go to attach it to the tongue, it'll make things a little bit simpler than having a rail that can kind of just move around, and it'd be a lot harder to keep it under control and maintain that 3-foot span. So I've got this 2x4 1/8-inch wall that I think I'm going to reserve that for a rear bumper, because I want to have a nice good rear bumper for pulling people out. If they get stuck, I can pull them out. And then I believe I've got some of this let's see here, I think it's 1-inch by 2-inch square tubing. Come on. Yeah, welcome to my parts department. Okay, so I tell you what, if you've got metal at your house, go to Home Depot or Ace and get some of these nice heavy duty brackets, and they make perfect racks for holding steel. Okay, so I've got 2 of these, and it looks like it's a 1x2 by 1/8 inch rectangular tubing, and I'm going to use those as the cross brace pieces. Let's see if I can actually grab. Whoa, come on. Sometimes it's a catch-all too. Okay, there we go. Open sesame. So I think this will be really good to have as a cross brace. Now I'm gonna notch it after I cut it to fit inside the frame so it'll all be flush. Now I could go with something a little bit more heavy duty, but I think that'll actually work out perfect because I'm thinking of using the whole bottom, or to cover the whole bottom with a piece of maybe 1/8 inch plate, or even 14 gauge. I think I was looking at 14 gauge, and I think 14 gauge will be just right. I don't want to make it extremely heavy, so that's why I thought maybe 1/8 inch would be a little too much. So I think I'm going to sheet it with 14 gauge. And once I do that and I tie it into the main frame rails and the cross bracing, I won't be able to get 2 pieces out of one, so I'll probably divide this up. It'll be rear bumper, and then 1, 2, and then another one up front. And I think I might use some of the 3-inch channel to go across up front. So, but anyways, once I weld that 14 gauge plate down onto this and tie it all in, it's gonna make everything just super strong by tying it in. So that's why I'm not thinking of going extremely heavy duty with these cross bracings. So I think it'll be just fine. So yeah, I guess next thing is we'll set up the chop saw and start cutting some cross braces and get this all set up as one unit. Yeah, let's dive into it. We're getting somewhere. Okay, so rear bumper is tacked onto the frame. Now the frame is 3-inch channel and my bumper is 4-inch by 2-inch. So I had to put these 1-inch spacer blocks underneath the frame so it all leveled out. And it's just tack welded right now. And I'm not going to weld it out just in case I need to make a change. And I recommend doing that. I learned very quickly that if you weld something out and you need to change it, it makes it a huge pain in the butt to have to go back and fix it all. So I recommend tacking it out first until you get to a certain point. When you get to a certain point that you know it's good, go ahead and weld it out. So then that way you don't have to get into difficult areas to try to weld something. So what we're going to do is I'm going to raise it up, line it up perfectly level and straight with the frame now, and we're going to attach the frame rails to the tongue, and once I get to that point, I think I'll go ahead and weld it. Is welded out. There we go. So I flipped the frame upside down. It's actually upside down right now, and that way I can get to these welds a whole lot easier and weld it out. I try to weld everything out flat, but you know, sometimes you gotta weld vertical or overhead. So now time to move on to suspension and axle. So the type of suspension that I'm thinking of doing for now is just a leaf spring suspension. Eventually I am going to do a coil independent suspension to get a smoother ride for the trailer and also for ground clearance, but right now I'm just going to do the leaf spring, and who knows, maybe the leaf spring will be just perfectly fine. But the springs that I have are just too much spring rate for the trailer, which means that it's going to bounce the living snot out of my trailer. So I thought about using these, but this is off of a camper. This was a camper trailer, and these are the springs for it. So this is made to hold a ton of weight. Short springs. It's got a relatively good amount of springs in the spring pack, so this is going to be a stiff bugger. Now I could remove that one and that one and that one, and then it might be okay, but I've got a better idea, I think. So what I'm thinking of doing is using some springs that I pulled off of a vehicle, because I think they'll work. I'm thinking of using these Jeep Cherokee springs. Now these are the rear springs out of a Cherokee. They don't have an overload on them. It's just the spring pack. There's no heavy duty overload, and with a longer spring it rides a lot smoother as well. Woo. So that's what I'm thinking, except for that would be over there. Yeah. This would be over like so. Now you compare that little spring. Okay, this thing. Okay, I'm gonna set it down on the ground. And there we go. Okay. I can't even compress that. Barely. I mean, that's a lot of weight, right? Now this thing, look at that. Yeah. That's more like it. So I think that this spring is going to be a much better setup. So I'm going to go with those Jeep stock rear Jeep Cherokee leaf springs. I think that's going to work out much, much better. So let's go ahead and start working on the mounts for the springs, and then we will cut the axle down and we'll weld new spring perches on, and we'll go from there. So it's going to be tall. I think she's going to be kind of tall. So yeah, we'll figure it out. It'll be good. It'll be good. So, okay, let's get some parts made. Now that's what I'm talking about. I think this was a good choice. You know, once I get the shocks mounted on there, I think this thing's gonna ride really, really nice. It's gonna handle the weight. I mean, these boxes, I could pick them up myself, but they're not heavy by any means, and I'm gonna be adding more and more and more and more. So I think these are gonna work out just right. So, well, let's take a measurement and let's do the dreadful cutting the axle in half. Once we do that, it's hard to go back. So, cool. Alrighty, let's yeah, let's cut an axle in half. It's done. It's ready. It is time to roll this thing over and put it on some tires. So let's see how this goes. We can move these out of the way first. So get them out of our way so then we can roll a little bit easier. There we go. Okay.
On one side.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'll lift this up, move that out, set it down, and then we'll see if we can, you know, skirt it from there. Oh wow, that's still not very heavy. I'm kind of surprised. Okay. Might have to scoot.
I just don't want to bend your jack.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I can.
It's a nice little trailer, man.
There we go.
Very nice.
I'm super excited about this build, and I can't wait to share the rest of this with you guys. What I have envisioned in my head. I think you guys will really, really like it. So stay tuned for part 2. which will be attaching the boxes to the side of the trailer. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for more of Project Overland Trailer. So thanks everyone. Until next time, we'll see you later.